Hi, my name is Rebekah Ames, and this is my field report for the 6200 class, the concrete examples of language that I hear in my class. I teach third grade at Altera Elementary, which is a K through 5 school in Sandy, Utah. We have about 550 students. We have a pretty low ELL population, although it is increasing. Right now we have only about 4% of our students that are identified as ELL students. And currently this year I do not have any ELL students in my classroom. So when thinking about this project, I realized that even though I don't have any ELL students, I do have students who are working to improve their English and working to use English correctly. So my classroom, I have 23 students this year. I have them arranged in table groups. They sit in 4 tables. We do a lot of partner talk. We do a lot of talking together, thinking and pairing and sharing. And that's throughout the day. And then also they do partner and individual work for an hour every day when we do practice stations. So as far as my examples of students who are struggling to produce English correctly in all of its forms, the first thing that I thought of is I have a student that has a pretty severe speech impediment. He goes to speech therapy every week. And there was one time that we were working in a small group, it was during practice stations time, and during practice stations I pull back either individual students or small groups of students to come back and work with me. And we were looking at initial F sounds. So we were looking at words that had initial F sounds like fountain. And so we would work on isolating or pushing up those sounds and then identifying where the F sound was. And I gave several examples of what I was looking for, and then I let the students come up with their own examples of words that had an initial F sound. And so this particular student, he said that he had one, and he said, I know, giraffe. And he was really proud of himself, and the rest of us, including the other students in the group, we were all pretty confused. And so talking to him a little bit more, I realized that what he was trying to say was giraffe. And I had noticed that he would make this error other times as well. Like, for example, he would ask to get a frink from the frinking fountain instead of a drink from the drinking fountain. But I hadn't realized until he made this particular error that he actually apparently heard that beginning f sound in a lot of words that didn't have it. And so we kind of stopped and talked about it as a group, in a small group, and did it in a non-threatening, non-embarrassing way, and tried to sort of clear that up for him. Another example that I thought of is that a lot of times when I teach an adverb that has an ly ending, my kids have a really difficult time grasping the concept of an adverb being a word that describes a verb. A lot of times they want to use it as the actual verb in a sentence. And so I try to teach them that if you have a word that has an ly ending, what that means is that it's describing that someone is doing something in a whatever the verb is, or whatever the adverb is, way. So for example, if the word is dreamily, they would try to describe it as someone's doing something in a dreamy way. So I would try to model that and say, Sarah stared out the window dreamily, or stared dreamily out the window. But I always have kids that want to use it as a verb. So in other words, they would say, Sarah dreamily out the window. And so I try every time that I teach adverbs, every time I introduce adverbs to model that and to do a lot of sort of preemptive work in anticipation of that error that's going to be made. And I have noticed that since I've identified that that is a common occurrence, that I do have kids that do a better job with using that particular adverb correctly. The last example that I have is we recently read a story about supermarkets, and the students were asked to do a writing assignment where they described the process of food going from the farm to the supermarket. And so I have one student who, he's not classified as ELL, but I know that Spanish is spoken in his home. I believe English is as well, but I know that Spanish is as well. And as I was reading through his writing, I noticed that he had some really interesting phonetic spelling that he employed. And I'm going to see if you can see this when I hold this up. But so he was talking about vegetables, and so you can see he spelled it Vechitbals, which I thought was a really interesting, phonetic way to spell vegetables. And if you think about like the sounds and the syllables, he represented every sound. He just heard some of the sounds a little bit differently and represented them with different letters. And so I thought that was an interesting thing. He also, at another point, sort of just removed one of the syllables. So he has vegetables, and then he described instead of fruit, he is hearing fruit, and so he was spelling it with a D on the end. So I thought that was some interesting phonetic spelling. So as far as the last part of this is whether I would alter my teaching at all. In the case of the student who had the speech impediment and was using the F sound, we did talk about it, and I do correct him when I hear him. I don't stress too much about it, though, because he is in speech therapy, and I figure he's getting some assistance from our speech pathologist more than what I could probably give him. As far as hearing the students use the adverb that ends in an ly correctly, I have changed the way that I teach that, and I have sort of anticipated that error and done a lot more modeling and pre-teaching before I ask them to come up with sentences on their own using those ly words, and I have noticed a difference. As far as the last student, I don't know that I would correct him. I feel like phonetic spelling is a really good effort on his part. I think he was, doing everything he could to convey the words that he wanted to convey and use phonetic spelling to do that, and I applaud his effort, and I don't have a problem with the way that he did that. So I think I would not alter my teaching at all for that, and I would just continue to encourage him to express his ideas in writing, which is exactly what he did. So thank you.